about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest helping small, medium sized companies get ranked and top of the Google by using search engine optimization tactics and bringing in traffic via social media. And of course, the author of the book, The Power of Guest Podcasting, none other than Mr. Brandon Leibowitz.
Thank you for having me on the show today.
Welcome, Mr. Brandon, on Book One Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, my name is Brandon Leibowitz, and I've been involved with digital marketing since 2007. Kind of fell into it after I graduated from college, got my degree in business marketing. And one of the first jobs I was offered out of school was helping a company out with their digital marketing, specifically search engine optimization, which I didn't really know much about it. I told the company that. They said, don't worry, we're going to learn with you and take you to different workshops and classes and seminars, and decided to give that a try. And after a few months, I just realized everyone's probably going to have a website in the future back in 2007. And that SEO is just a way to get free traffic. And that got me sticking with SEO, working at different advertising agencies as a director of SEO. And before work, after work, and on my lunch breaks, I would work on my own company and was able to build that up to where I was able to quit my job, and been doing this ever since, helping people tap into that free traffic.
Indeed. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Brandon. Thank you. And today let's talk about the power of guest podcasting. You graduated in 2007 with a business marketing degree, and your first job was marketing for an e commerce where neither nor your employer knew everything about digital marketing. You essentially learned SE together through classes, forums, and seminars. As you told us, looking back, what is the uncertainty terrifying or liberating? Did learning in the trenches teach you that perfect education never could?
Yeah, no, it taught me lots of, I mean, school doesn't really teach you much about digital SEO specifically, because it's so dynamic. It keeps changing, especially nowadays. It's been changing even more so. But I learned a lot about just how websites, how search engines work, how user behavior, how people behave on a website to not only get you traffic, but try to figure out how to get that visitor to then want to buy your product or use your services. And just learned a ton of information really just by going hands on and just playing around, testing things out, seeing what works, what doesn't work. Because even in those classes and forums and workshops, it's a lot of them telling you stuff. But once you actually start trying it, then you can actually see, is this working? Is this applicable to what I'm trying to do? And lots of just trying and testing is the best.
Mm, very well said, Mr. Brandon. Very well said. And you've been, you personally landed over 300 podcast appearance, isn't that, Mr. Brandon?
Yep, I was doing them as a guest because the way SEO works is you can put keywords all over your website, but keywords don't do much without trust signals, because search engines knew back in the 90s, Google came around and said, we're not looking at keywords first, we're looking at what are called backlinks. Because
Mm-hmm.
before then, all the search engines were just looking at keywords, and anybody could put keywords on their website. That doesn't necessarily mean you are related to those keywords. I could put keywords on my website saying I'm a doctor, and in the 90s, the search engines would be like, oh, yep, Brand is a doctor, but am I really a doctor? Google said we can't trust those keywords, so we want to see mentions of you on other people's websites. The more third-party websites that mention you, the more popular you seem, the more trust they're going to give to you. It's kind of like votes of confidence, and that gets you to move up the rankings higher. So I had my own podcast and did that for a while, but then someone reached out to me about being a guest on their podcast, And then it triggered my SEO side of things saying, all right, if I could be a guest on your podcast, which is great for subject matter expertise, for getting social media content, but it also gets me published on another website. Google sees that, and that gets me to move up the rankings higher because the way I used to, and I still build backlinks, is by blogging on other people's websites. So I would do guest blogging, and then I realized guest podcasting is almost the same thing. It's going to get me a backlink, but I get even more value out of it because people, it puts a face behind the company. People learn more about who I am. I get that social media content, get so many extra benefits. But my main goal was getting those backlinks, and I do the same thing for my clients: is get them booked on other people's podcasts to help them build more backlinks, because the more backlinks you have, the higher you're going to move up the search rankings.
Mm. Interesting, Mr. Brandon. The book was last minute KDP launch and still hit number one on Amazon podcasting category. What was the happening in these final hours before you hit publish? Is it fear, excitement, second guessing, and how did you know it was ready enough to send into the world?
It was definitely a lot of all those emotions and more, because this book was 4 years in the making. I've been working on it, and it's just, writing a book is a lot more work than I expected. And I knew that going in, but working on a book was tough. And I was speaking at a conference at Podfest, which is all about podcasting. And I was speaking on the topic the book was on. And I was like, all right, if I'm speaking at this conference, I just need to finish this book and just get it done. So I just kind of grinded away. We're writing at night, late at night, in between client meetings, and literally staying up to like 4 a.m. for like a month before the conference, every single day, working on the book, the formatting, the cover, the back cover, putting lead magnets for each chapter to get people off the book into my funnel, into my email list, and then working on the email follow-ups, the landing pages, and it's so much more than I expected. But right before I hit that launch button, I was more of, I guess, relieved to just be like, all right, I'm done with this part. And now I can focus on the marketing, which is my expertise and what I like to do, even though I've never launched a book before. But marketing is what I enjoy. So that was the part where I was like, all right, now I get to promote it and share it with the world and work my SEO on the book to try to make my book rank higher on search engines, on Amazon. And it all worked out. Released the book a week later. Well, a couple days later, I went to Podfest. And at Podfest, the second day, it was like a multiple day conference, but second day, it actually hit bestseller on Amazon. And then the last day at Podfest, I spoke about guest podcasting for SEO, and the book was a hit. People loved it. And ever since then, well, it's only been a month, but since then, it's been a huge relief and just more excitement about just spreading the word and just getting the book out to more people.
Yes, and congratulations, Mr. Brandon, for being a best-selling author. You're an SEO expert by trade, running SEO optimized since 2007. How did watching Google's algorithm evolve and now watching AI models like ChatGPT change discovery convince you that podcast guesting needed its own dedicated playbook?
And Google has been changing all the time ever since I first started doing SEO, but they were just little changes every few months. I mean, they make changes on a daily basis, but every few months they would make some big changes. Like 2011, there was a panda and a penguin algorithm updates that were for some reason named after animals, but they were looking at the quality of your content, making sure you have good quality content, making sure you have good quality backlinks. Because before then, people were just building and finding ways to build low quality backlinks and just gaming the system. And search engines don't want that to happen. So those two algorithm updates are still one of the most important ones that are still affecting SEO, because people are finding ways to build backlinks that are low quality, and guest podcasting was a great way to build good quality backlinks, because it's all about quality over quantity. A few good quality backlinks are much better than 100 mediocre or low quality backlinks. And what is a quality backlink? To search engines, a quality backlink means you're published on another website that's related to what you're doing. That's the most important thing, is relevancy. How related is this website to you? So by me getting on podcasts about business, entrepreneurship, about marketing, Google sees that I'm on all these websites that are related to what I'm doing. That builds that trust and gets them to then move me up the rankings in the search results. And then AI came around in 2022. I think that's when ChatGPT launched, and that really changed how people search with the LLMs. And now, instead of just the LLMs, they have similar rankings signals, but also they want to see that you're all over the internet, not only on websites, but then now they're looking more at your social media presence, making sure that you're not just focusing on backlinks, but trying to get mentioned on as many different websites as possible. Because before AI, social media didn't really help out with SEO too much. I mean, search engines wanted to make sure that you had like a Facebook, a LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok, all those platforms, but they didn't really see what you were posting. Now the search engines are looking at what you're posting, what other people are posting about you, and really just trying to get people talking about you and trying to build a brand. That's one of the biggest changes nowadays, is not just trying to game the system with keywords and backlinks, but trying to make a brand where people are actually searching for your company name or my name or whatever it is that you're trying to promote. And that has been one of the biggest changes that is changing so quickly every single day. There's new LLMs out there. They're looking at different signals, and it's constantly evolving and shifting much more than before. So before AI, Google changed every like a little bit, but now it's just changed so much, and it's really, now the issue is trying to stay up to date with all the different LLMs and what signals they are looking for to rank you higher.
You emphasize finding the right podcast using Google operators, PadMats, and Listen Notes. How do you help someone in distinguish between a podcast that looks good on paper and a podcast that will actually move their business forward?
So I like to go in and use what are called Google Advanced Search Operators, which seems way more technical than it is, but essentially it's just putting the word like site, then putting a colon, and then in quotation marks, you would put the word podcast and then your keyword after that. And that will show you websites that have the word podcast and then have whatever keyword you're focusing on in that podcast title. So if I'm helping out like a pet website where they sell like dog food, I'd put like site colon in quotation marks word podcast and then dog or animal or pets. And that will show me podcasts that are already ranking on the search engines about that topic. Because if something is ranking on the search engines, that means that that platform, that Google trusts that podcast. And if I'm able to get on podcasts that the search engines already trust, that's going to be much better than me just finding a random podcast or finding somebody that, I mean, it might be a good podcast, but if the search engines don't trust it, it's not going to help out as much for SEO. Also, trying to make sure that you find podcasts that have been established. When I first started doing guest spots, I was happy to be on anyone's podcast because I was just getting my foot in the door. And sometimes I'd be on episode number 2 or 3 of a podcast. Now I'm like, I'd rather be a little bit more selective, and just like I was saying earlier, quality over quantity. So at first, it's not bad to jump on episode number 5, just to like practice, get the cadence, make sure all the technical details with your webcam, the mic, the lighting, making sure you have a good story, making sure you're in a quiet place, because I've had lots of technical issues in the past, and trying to make sure that you don't have those on the bigger shows, because it's good to practice. But once you've established yourself and got a good rhythm going, then trying to find those bigger sites or bigger podcasts, searching on Google. I could use like Listen Notes, which is a podcast directory where it would list out all the podcasts, and you could put one of your competitors or someone that's in a similar space to you. So like I could find another SEO specialist, put their name in these platforms and see what podcasts they've been a guest on. Then I could reach out to those podcasts to see if they would be open to having me on it, because if they had someone similar to me, they probably would want me on it Doesn't guarantee it, but it's more than likely that they would. And so that helps me get my foot in the door with them, or using Pod Match, where the site would match you up with guests or hosts that are looking for guests, and vice versa. But really just trying to be specific and trying to find the ones that are related to you and have been established.
The book addressed host interview strategy, driving traffic after each appearance, and converting listener attention. Most guests treat the interview as the finish line. You treat this as the starting line. What is the one thing guests forget to do after the mic turns off that costs them the most of the value?
Usually following up with the host and then resharing the content. So trying to follow up with the host and making sure that you stay like connected with them, trying to build a relationship with that podcast host, because they had you on their show, you're tapping into their audience. You might as well try to reciprocate the favor. And once the podcast goes live, staying on top of it to make sure that I could reshare it with my audience. That way we're both helping one another out. Because sometimes podcast hosts, they get busy and they'll release an episode, and I've had times where they don't let me know. So I set up Google alerts where anytime someone mentions my name, I get an alert, and then I could see if a podcast episode has been published. Then I could then share it with my audience and really try to help each other out and share it on my website as a blog post. I would share it on my Facebook, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, TikTok, all these different places. That way it helps distribute the podcast. That way people hear more of the message, because once you're done recording, that's just step one. After that, how do you get as many people to listen and watch that episode? And that's where the marketing comes into play. You could share the episodes to your email list if you have built an email list up with an audience, and sharing on social, sharing on your website, and just trying to get the word out as much as you can.
Mr. Brandon, you observed the split between what Google values and what LLMs like ChatGPT and Gemini surface. How does podcast testing position someone for discovering an all driven world where traditional SEO rules are being rewritten?
No, the guest podcasting is great because now you're not just only getting a backlink, but you're getting content that you could repurpose on social media and share with your audience. And it gets people listening to episodes that might be driving their car, or wherever they're listening, but they're going to hear my story. And then hopefully they'll search on Google for my name. Google sees that people are searching for my name or my company name, and that helps establish you as a brand, because that's really what they're looking for nowadays, is to make sure that you're not just a website, but you're a brand. And building a brand is not something you could do overnight. And guest podcasting is a great way to help establish yourself, get people searching for you, get new people finding out about you, and getting your name searched. Because with traditional SEO, I want to rank for keywords like SEO company, SEO services, link building, or how to rank higher on search engines. But now I also want people searching my name, because search engines see that, and that sends that brand trust signal. So it's a little bit different, and still want to get people searching for you. But now we want to just get people searching for your brand and non-brand keywords, where in the past it was more focused on just non-brand keywords, because that's where you're going to get new people. But now we also want to get the brand searches up as well.
Hmm. Very well said, Mr. Brandon. And you recommend creating audience specific pages on your website for each podcast appearance. Why is that worth the effort? What was the trap, duplicate content that people need to avoid when they do it?
So there's two ways of doing it. For the host, I always recommend that they take every podcast episode and put it up as a standalone blog post, because a lot of hosts will just take their podcast and they'll just embed the player on a page and say, here's all my podcast episodes. But it's a lot better to take each episode and make a blog post about it. And then that page is going to rank, because the way search engines work is each page is an opportunity to rank for different keywords. So if you take this episode and make it a standalone blog post on your website. If someone's searching for SEO for books or for guest podcasting, that page will start to rank in the search engines. Whereas if you don't have that page, it just kind of lumps it all together and it doesn't have that same relevancy. So when you make a blog post on your page, you can embed the player there, you can embed the YouTube player, you can make a description that describes what this episode is about. You could timestamp it. You could do a lot, and that will then get that page to rank in the search engines and bring you more traffic as a host. And also, when you share that to your guests, instead of sharing like a YouTube and Spotify and all these different links, now you just share one link to your website. And I'm going to share that with my audience because if you share YouTube or Spotify, I'm going to share that YouTube link to my audience. And YouTube doesn't need more traffic. They get plenty of traffic. And even once someone gets on YouTube, there's distractions, there's noise, there's other videos, there's ads. It's easy to get sucked in that algorithm and forget about that episode that you're listening to and watch something else. But if you send somebody to your website, you control your website. You control the messaging, you control the call to actions, and you could lead people into learn more about your product or service or listen to more episodes without getting sucked into that algorithm, which might take them somewhere else. And then I do the same for myself. So if I'm a guest on someone's podcast, I then repurpose that content on my own website as a blog post because it's more content for me to add to my website. I'm able to share or rank for those keywords and kind of piggyback off of your podcast name and podcast topics to then start ranking in the search engines for other keywords. And also, blogging is very important for SEO. It's helpful to add more content, add new pages to your website. And if you're a guest on someone's podcast, that's just low-hanging fruit of content that you could repurpose on your own website. The host could repurpose it and just help each other get more traffic to our websites versus helping social media get traffic because social media doesn't need more traffic. They get plenty of people going to Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, but we need to help each other get more traffic. And that's why putting those podcast episodes on your website is going to be the best long-term strategy.
Interesting, Mr. Brandon. And tell us, you warn about avoiding duplicate content traps when repurposing podcast content. For someone who is not an SEO expert, what is a simple rule of thumb to follow so they don't accidentally hurt their rankings while trying to help them?
So search engines don't like duplicate content. Imagine you're searching on Google, like how to fix a flat tire for my car. If you had a flat tire and the same 10 articles appear on that first page of Google, that's not a good user experience. That doesn't help you out. Search engines want original content. Whoever publishes the content first gets all the credit. Everyone else that repurposes it is not going to rank. So if you post the podcast, this podcast on your blog, and then I copy the exact same description you posted on your own blog onto mine, it's not going to work. So I need to write my own description about that episode, give it a unique point of view. Basically, it's more for text. You want to make sure you have original text. We could put the same video up, that's fine, but the content, the text that is on that page has to be unique. Otherwise, it's duplicate content and it doesn't work. So a lot of people don't realize that. And I would say post the content on your website first, then you could share it on social media. That's not a big deal. But if I'm going to copy it from your website and post it on my own website, that's where it's going to hurt my website rankings.
Mm. Thank you for the tips, Mr. Brandon. Thank you, thank you. And to wrap up our discussion for today, you are now on the other side, the author being interviewed about your book rather than just the guest pitching your expertise. How has the shift changed and how you think about the host you used to pitch?
Yeah, and I've been so busy writing the book that I really didn't have time to start getting on podcasts after the book launched. But now that I have been, it's been changing a lot of how I approach podcasts when I try to pitch myself and saying like, hey, I'd love to discuss SEO, but I'd also like to discuss guest podcasting and how that's beneficial for your website or for rankings. So it's a little different on my angle that I'm approaching. And even when I'm speaking as a guest, now I'm talking more about or trying to talk a little bit more about the book. I don't want to promote myself throughout the whole episode. Nobody wants to hear that, but trying to weave that in as an extra value added portion. Whereas in the past, I would just kind of let people know the book is coming out, but it's finally out. And now people could now learn how to use guest podcasting, not just from hearing me speak about it, but they could read it and learn about it as well.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Brandon, for sharing to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support the power of guest podcasting?
Yep. I'd love for everyone to pick up a copy. I've dropped the price right now and made it 99 cents on Kindle. So, and make it affordable for everyone. That way they could learn and get that messaging out there and they could find it on Amazon or anywhere else that books are being sold. I've been trying to do my marketing, so getting it out there everywhere. They could also just search it on Google, find my website, and get it there as well.
Indeed, people let's support Mr. Brandon, because if you support him, for sure more and more empowering books like this to rise. So, Mr. Brandon, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me on today.
More people, see you soon.